T.D. Walker is the author of Small Waiting Objects, a collection of near-future science fiction poems. Her poems and stories have appeared in publications including Strange Horizons and Web Conjunctions. After completing graduate work in English literature, Walker began her career as a software developer. She draws on both her grounding in literary studies and her experience as a computer programmer in writing poetry and fiction. Please welcome T.D. Thank you. Okay. We're going to hope my voice holds out. One of the things that I was thinking about as I was creating or putting together the book is the way that we look at ourselves reading science fiction, especially, and so that's where this first one, the first poem in the book starts. It's entitled "Artist Model." 1. The model is heroine, 1931. Here, he'd said and nodded after she'd arrived, late morning, light filtering into his studio, the door propped open. Here, he'd said, pointing his stained finger at the closet she could change in, she'd known where to go. She'd been here before. Had he not remembered her, or had the light changed, or had the weeks? Here, he'd said, after she'd emerged in the pale blue gown, moving her into place behind the model man, the ranger, or the captain, or the scientist she'd hide behind here. How many times had she worn this particular dress? How many times had she stood behind him, not him, but some form, a body made here? She sees the model man is an officer from no ship they could retreat to, and she is the world he protects. He presses her back away toward safety. She is a whole planet, fluid and blue. She is the world, and she is holding up the world with its people, unaware of his hands on her body. It's people who she was this morning, drinking weak coffee. It's people who she was last night, staring up, sleepless, her ceiling warning her that there are stars, but she won't see them. It's people who she was days and days ago, back here in a pink dress, a white dress, a yellow dress, buckling her sandal, wondering where, once again, he'd put her. 2. The Artist, 1931. One last time, just this once. Of course I'd meet him, dressed as a captain. I need to paint a captain. The story always ends with the captain saving the ship, the planet, the ones cowering behind him, never himself. 3. The model as the alien queen, 1931. Later, they'll figure out we were the same woman. The face he paid too much attention to, painted too near to life. As if the artist tried not to see the heroine staring at my ray gun rigged up, dangling from the space where I'll be. Her fear, not fear enough, not yet. The captain throwing himself into the ray gun's beam. How many times have we heard this story? She'll go home, the model, the straps from the blue dress still holding her shoulders down as if something were drowning her. There is too much neatness to my life. I'll die from a battle blow. The captain's defense too late to save him from my last shot. She'll be left here, the heroine, abandoned on this moon, unable to contact the world she left, unable to decide whose body she should weep for. 4. Aboard the Gen ship, 2131. He'll read the image of the words over and over, her son, the next generation born here, aboard the ship. How strange to be an explorer with nowhere to go except down the hall into the archive. After he's read the stories too many times, the ship will help him recall the count. After she'd read those digitized pages, her fingers nearly smoothed with imagined ink, she'd told herself how she would have stood were she the captain, how she would have stood on the world she will never see herself. So the next poem I'm going to read is from a series thinking about what would happen if another moon just kind of happened to come into orbit around Earth. How would we on Earth look at this new body up there? Or would we even notice it? How would we proceed? So this one is called New Moon First Astronaut, and it starts with a quote from President John F. Kennedy's moon speech in Houston. September 12, 1962. We have had our failures, but so have others, even if they do not admit them. The first astronaut fails to pack her grandmother's wedding ring, fearing it will disturb the necessary weight the ship must bear in popular imagination. She is stored in this capsule, history reminding her of this. She is no more than an instrument, one among others that will guide them to this the Earth's second moon. We set sail on the sea, her grandmother told her once in passing, how she'd come as a small child with her family fleeing some conflict, how she'd watched others turned back, how she'd been among the lucky. And then her grandmother's sudden silence, as if her memory's hazards are hostile, even still. The rain came later, trucked from some factory far away from her old homeland, her new. We choose to go to the moon, this moon, not because it is there, but because we are here. The second moon fails to have enough mass for what could be called a landing. The capsule must touch the surface, anchor itself. The first astronaut must be the most intricate instrument aboard the ship, but she will fail to reach the moon with the rain, the story's untold half, the ashes and splinters of the thousands of weights she might give the moon to relieve it of its lightness. So another thing that makes science fiction poetry, to me, interesting to write about is thinking about just ordinary people and kind of day-to-day life on the moon or on Mars. So I wrote a series of obots, the poems lovers say to each other on leaving in the morning, thinking about how would lovers in that situation think in terms of what metaphors that they take from Earth and what new metaphors they come with. So, Obod, taking off. The ship jolts up the way stems, their roots pulled from the damp ground, jolt upward and pause before that movement toward darkness. A window back to that soil reveals a highway winding back to a clearing where you and I pulled green shoots to make a garnish for our last picnic, a meal hastily eaten in the hunger of the body after the body has been satisfied. This is your window now, where I must leave you, earthbound, while the ship takes my body away from yours. Mornings here, their gradual blueness, the way the mockingbird calls, the way sunlight calls you, and the air waking your body to these particular days. And others will come after me into darkness, your bedside lamp chases away, as if you could lift the sun. Their farewells will be as full of earth as an atlas. I have much to learn where I am going, how to step in the red soils, how to endure long winters, how to turn over stones to find this new world's way of parting. And I think the last one, I have a little bit of voice left, sorry, is from a group of poems that I was writing about. We already give a lot of our lives over to devices, and so I see that as more of a continuing thing. And so I asked myself in writing some of these poems, how would the devices that we already have, if they were given AI, how would that affect the day-to-day lives of people in the future? The Internet of Things. For weeks he keeps the code hidden from his wife. True, she saw that urgent green blinking first, had searched the manual for it. Nothing she could find online matched it. Perhaps, she said, it was calling home. She left the light to its own mystery. He never knew why the coffee maker, like so much else they owned, needed access to the web, only that it sent its pings home, downloaded its updates. He returned to the manual, searched for those changing series of flashes, sometimes repeating, sometimes quiet, the way a child learns language. He'd begun to record the code, what looked to him like a code. On the online calendar, they'd started to track his wife's fertility, the calendar she'd not logged into since she started drinking caffeinated coffee again. He watches her sitting on the patio, cup in hand, hot coffee on a too-hot morning. The sun rises. This must be what it is to be a child before it has learned to speak. He watches her, then turns back to the work of the code. Slight change in the pattern this morning, as if the planet from which the signal comes has passed behind its star. This must be what it is to be a child before it has learned each distance its strange new language cannot cover.